Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt like you needed to shrink? It's that sudden, heavy sensation that everyone is suddenly looking at you, measuring your worth and counting your flaws. You find yourself adjusting your posture, smoothing down your clothes, or rehearsing your next sentence in your head before you even open your mouth. We spend so much energy trying to guess what other people are thinking about us, turning ourselves into mind readers just to feel safe. But the truth is, most of the time, those invisible eyes don't actually exist. Everyone else is far too busy worrying about their own invisible audience to truly focus on yours. You are carrying a weight that wasn't actually given to you, and it is exhausting to live your life on high alert, waiting for a verdict that isn't coming. Think about how much of your day is stolen by this quiet panic. You sit down at a table, and instead of enjoying your food, you wonder if you are holding your fork correctly, or if the person 2 tables over is judging how quickly you are eating. You walk down a crowded hallway, and suddenly your own legs feel unfamiliar, as if you've forgotten how to walk naturally because you are certain someone is tracking your steps. It is a strange kind of prison, isn't it? A prison where the walls are made entirely of what-ifs. We become hyper-aware of everything we do, the volume of our laugh, the way we wave goodbye, the long pauses we take before speaking. We treat our ordinary human existence as a performance that requires a standing ovation just to be valid. But notice what happens to your body when you live this way. Your shoulders tighten, your breath grows shallow, and a restless knot forms in your stomach. You are constantly braced for an impact that never happens. You are treating the world around you like a courtroom where you are always on trial. And every stranger passing by is a member of the jury. It is a heartbreaking way to live because it forces you to become a stranger to yourself. Instead of asking, "What do I want right now?" or "How do I actually feel?" your internal compass spins wildly, always asking, "How am I being perceived?" Let yourself pause for just a moment right now. Take a long, slow breath and let your shoulders drop. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. The truth is, the harsh spotlight you feel under is an illusion. People are consumed by their own lives, their own bills, their own heartbreaks, and their own deep insecurities. When they look in your direction, they aren't scanning for your flaws. They are usually trapped in the exact same cycle, wondering what you are thinking about them. You do not need to apologize for occupying space. You do not need to walk softly so nobody notices you, or speak in a whisper so nobody disagrees. The heavy, suffocating pressure of those invisible eyes can only stay if you keep feeding it your attention. It is okay to be seen. It is okay to be awkward, to stumble, to make a mistake in public, and to simply be a human being in progress. You are allowed to take up room in this world without needing permission and without needing to clear it with an imaginary audience first. Turn your gaze inward, back to the safety of your own heart, and let the rest of the world fade into the background where it belongs. We learn early on how to build a version of ourselves that feels safe from criticism. We call it being polite, or fitting in, or just keeping the peace. We smooth over our sharp edges, silence our unique opinions, and nod along just to avoid standing out. But when you spend years wearing a mask to please the world, a quiet ache begins to grow inside. You start to realize that the applause you receive isn't actually for you. It's for the character you are playing. Carl Jung captured this perfectly when he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When we let the fear of what others think dictate our steps, we trade our actual life for a safe, watered-down imitation. The cost of that perfect mask is losing the very person it was built to protect. Think about the sheer amount of energy it takes to maintain that flawless exterior every single day. It is like holding a heavy shield up in front of you, never letting it drop for a single second, because you are terrified of what will happen if someone sees the tired, fragile human being standing behind it. We look in the mirror before we leave the house and we check our expressions, making sure our smile looks effortless, our reactions seem pleasant, and our flaws are tucked safely out of sight. We become experts at anticipating what others want from us. If they want us to be funny, we force a joke. If they want us to be strong, we swallow our tears. We mold ourselves into whatever shape keeps the room comfortable, completely forgetting that we are breaking our own hearts in the process. It is a lonely existence to be loved only for your disguise, or you can stand in a room full of people who are smiling at you, praising you, and inviting you into their circles, yet still feel entirely isolated. Deep down, a small voice whispers the painful truth. They don't love me. They love the version of me I created for them. Every compliment feels like a reminder of your own self-betrayal. You begin to wonder if anyone would stay if you showed them the messy parts, the doubts you carry, the moments you feel completely lost, or the opinions you keep locked away. We hide because we think our realness is too heavy, too much, or too flawed for the world to handle. So we keep adding layers to the mask, making it thicker and more detached from our true spirit, until we look in the mirror and realize we don't even recognize the eyes staring back at us. Letting go of the mask is terrifying because it feels like stepping onto a tightrope without a net. You worry that if you stop pretending, everything you have built will come crashing down around you. But keeping it on is a slow, silent fading away of your true self. Your actual life, the one filled with genuine joy, real connections, and true peace, cannot begin until you allow yourself to be seen. It is okay if your smile isn't perfectly polished today. It is okay if you don't have the energy to play the role of the person who has everything figured out. Your vulnerability isn't a design flaw. It is the absolute psur of who you are. The people who are meant to walk alongside you will not be pushed away by by your truth. They will be relieved by it, because your courage to drop the mask gives them permission to drop theirs too. Think about the last time you wanted to try something new, like picking up a hobby, signing up for a class, or sharing a creative project. Remember that moment of hesitation right before you hit submit or walked through the door? That pause is where fear whispers its favorite question. What if they think I'm foolish? So instead of creating, we look for permission. We look at what everyone else is doing, trying to find a safe blueprint to follow. We copy the way others speak, the hobbies they approve of, and the paths they have already walked. But a life that is constantly rehearsed and double-checked leaves no room for joy. You cannot discover what actually makes you feel alive if you only allow yourself to do what is socially guaranteed to succeed. When you live a rehearsed life, every day feels like an audition for a role you never really wanted. You don't just speak. You plan your sentences 3 steps ahead, adjusting your tone so it doesn't sound too eager, too sad, or too intense. You don't just choose a path. You look around to see if it is a path that society honors, a path that your family understands, or a path that won't raise any eyebrows. We become scripts instead of people. We practice our reactions in the mirror. We double-check our choices against 1,000 invisible standards, and we live in a state of constant, exhausting editing. We tell ourselves we are just being careful, or that we are being mature, but the truth is far more painful. We are terrified of the judgment that comes with making a genuine, unpolished mistake. Think of all the beautiful, messy things we miss out on when we refuse to step off the script. We miss the joy of being a beginner, of laughing at our own clumsiness, of creating something just for the pure, unadulterated fun of it, without worrying if it is good enough to show to the world. We trade our natural curiosity for a sterile kind of safety. You might want to try a new form of creative expression, or wear something that feels completely like you, or simply express an opinion that goes against the current. But the fear of that collective gasp from the crowd keeps you frozen in place. You stay in the safe zone, doing the things you already know how to do, saying the things people expect you to say, and watching your life pass by from the safety of the wings instead of standing on the stage. But a life built entirely on safety is a life half lived. Your heart didn't come here to follow a checklist or to repeat lines written by someone else. The moments that truly define us, the moments where we feel a deep, ringing sense of vitality, are always the unscripted ones. They are the moments where we stumble, where we laugh unexpectedly, where we speak from the gut instead of the head, and where we dare to try even when we know we might fail. It is okay if you don't have a perfect plan. It is okay if your first attempt looks messy or uneven. The people who matter won't love you less because you are learning. They will be inspired by the fact that you had the courage to try at all. Rip up the script you've been memorizing, step out of the rehearsal room, and allow yourself to live the actual, unpredictable reality of your life. It helps to understand where judgment actually comes from. When someone passes a harsh comment or gives you a critical look, it rarely has anything to do with your worth. People see the world through the lens of their own insecurities, their own regrets, and their own unhealed moments. If someone is deeply uncomfortable with their own vulnerability, they will naturally judge yours. Jung noted this dynamic beautifully, stating, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When you realize that other people's judgment is just a mirror of their own internal struggles, the sting begins to fade. Their criticism isn't a report card on your character. It's just a reflection of their own map. You don't have to carry the burden of their unfinished personal growth. Think about how much pain we could save ourselves if we stopped absorbing other people's projections as absolute truth. When someone reacts to you with coldness, jealousy, or unprovoked criticism, it feels so deeply personal. It feels like an arrow aimed directly at your heart, and you immediately begin to dissect your own behavior, wondering, what did I do wrong? How did I fail them? Am I really as bad as they say I am? But if you could step behind their eyes for just a moment, you would see a completely different story. You would see that their harsh words are actually a defense mechanism, a way to keep their own pain at bay. When people haven't dealt with their own feelings of inadequacy, seeing you show up fully, try your best, or share your heart can feel like a threat to the fragile walls they've built around themselves. We are all walking around carrying heavy bags of old memories, childhood rejections, and unspoken fears. When someone judgments you, they are simply taking a piece of their own heavy baggage and trying to hang it on your shoulders. If they are terrified of failing, they will mock your mistakes. If they feel unseen and unappreciated, they will find ways to minimize your achievements. It is a continuous cycle of people projecting their inner chaos onto the world around them. Once you see this clearly, your entire relationship with criticism changes. You stop reacting with anger or deep shame, and instead, you feel a quiet sense of compassion, or at the very least, a calm detachment. You realize that you are simply the canvas they are painting their own internal conflict onto, and that canvas doesn't have to absorb the paint. Let this truth wash over you and bring you some peace. You are not responsible for fixing the distorted images in other people's mirrors. You do not have to change who you are, shrink your joy, or apologize for your growth just to make someone else feel more comfortable with their own unresolved issues. Their opinion of you is a narrative constructed entirely inside their own mind, built from their own past and their own limitations. It belongs to them, not to you. The next time you feel the sharp sting of someone's disapproval, take a soft breath and gently hand that burden back to them. Remind yourself that you are allowed to be whole, even if others are still figuring out how to heal their own broken pieces. Let's be honest about how much time we waste trying to guess what is happening in someone else's head. You see a colleague glance away quickly, or a friend give a short answer. and your mind immediately builds a whole narrative about how they must be upset with you or judging your performance. We invent entire scripts, play out arguments, and feel genuine hurt over scenarios that exist entirely within our own imagination. We treat our anxieties as if they are absolute facts. But you cannot read minds, and you are not responsible for decoding every subtle shift in another person's expression. Letting go of the fear of judgment means accepting that you cannot control the narrative inside someone else's head. And quite frankly, it isn't your business to try. Think about how exhausting it is to carry the weight of conversations that haven't even happened. You leave a social gathering, and instead of remembering the laughter or the warmth, your mind fast forwards to the drive home, replaying every single interaction on a loop. You dissect the way someone said hello, the slight pause before they answered your question, or the fact that they looked at their phone while you were speaking. Within minutes, you have convinced yourself that they find you boring, that you spoke too much, or that you made a complete fool of yourself. We become prisoners of our own assumptions, building elaborate cases against ourselves using entirely fictional evidence. We treat our own insecure thoughts as if they are objective truths written in stone. This constant second-guessing is a form of quiet self-torture. We believe that if we can just anticipate what everyone else is thinking, we can protect ourselves from being hurt or rejected. We think that mind reading is a superpower that keeps us safe, but in reality, it is just anxiety wearing a clever disguise. It forces you to live life on the defensive, always trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't actually have an answer. The truth is, people's internal worlds are incredibly cluttered. When someone seems distant, quiet, or preoccupied, it is almost always about their own hidden battles. They might be stressed about their finances, dealing with a private disappointment, or simply feeling tired from their own long day. It is rarely, if ever, a calculation of your worth. When you decide to give up the role of the mind reader, an incredible amount of space opens up in your life. You stop begging for invisible approval, and you start accepting things at face value. If someone has an issue with you, it is their responsibility to communicate it with kindness and clarity. It is not your job to be a detective, constantly searching for clues of their disapproval. Let people own their thoughts, and you focus on owning yours. Take a deep, slow breath right now, and let go of the imaginary scripts you've been writing for the people around you. You are only responsible for the energy you bring into the room, not for how every single person chooses to process it. Allow yourself the beautiful freedom of simply not knowing, and trust that you are okay anyway. There is a strange, liberating turning point in self-discovery when you realize that no matter how kind, thoughtful, or careful you are, someone is still not going to like you. You could be the most beautifully ripe fruit in the world, and there will still be someone who simply does not enjoy that variety. And that is completely okay. Being disliked by someone doesn't mean you have failed. It often just means you have finally chosen to be authentic instead of agreeable. When you stop trying to win a popularity contest that has no finish line, a profound sense of relief takes over. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" And you start asking the much more important question, "Do I even like who I am when I am around them?" Think about the quiet liberation that comes with letting go of the need to be everyone's favorite person. For so much of our lives, we operate under the assumption that if we just adjust our personality enough, if we become a little softer, a little quieter, or a little more accomplished, we can finally convince everyone to accept us. We treat the disapproval of others like a broken piece of machinery that we are personally obligated to fix. If someone rolls their eyes or leaves us out of a conversation, we spend hours, sometimes days, trying to figure out how to win them over. But trying to make everyone like you is like trying to catch the wind in a net. It is an impossible task that leaves you feeling empty, fragmented, and utterly depleted. When you constantly bend yourself into shapes that please others, you lose your own center. You become a collection of what everyone else wants you to be, and your own voice gets buried under the noise of their expectations. But when you finally accept that it is completely fine for someone to misunderstand you or dislike your choices, the world doesn't end. In fact, it finally begins. The moment someone walks away or expresses disapproval, and you realize you are still standing, still breathing, and still completely whole, a beautiful shift occurs. You realize their dislike doesn't have the power to diminish your worth unless you hand that power over to them. This freedom allows you to build a life that feels authentic from the inside out. You stop dressing for the approval of strangers. You stop choosing interests based on what is popular. And you stop staying silent when your heart is begging you to speak up. You begin to understand that being disliked by the wrong people is actually a sign that you are living truthfully. It means you have boundaries. It means you stand for something. It means you are no longer willing to betray yourself just to keep a temporary, fragile peace in the room. Take a deep, gentle breath and let that sink in. You do not need to be a universal favorite. Let yourself be too much for some and not enough for others, because the only opinion that you truly have to live with at the end of the day is your very own. To truly quiet the fear of what others think, we have to look inward at the parts of ourselves we are trying so desperately to hide. We fear judgment because we are afraid someone will notice the exact flaws we secretly despise in ourselves. We worry we aren't smart enough, or capable enough, or interesting enough, so we panic when someone looks too closely. Jung spoke deeply about this internal landscape, observing, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Healing begins when you stop running from your own perceived inadequacies. When you acknowledge your mistakes, your awkwardness, and your learning curves, you take away the power that external judgment holds over you. You cannot be blackmailed by an insecurity you have already embraced. Think about how much energy we expend every day trying to bury our vulnerabilities where no one can see them. We try to act like we have everything completely together, that we never get jealous, that we never feel deeply insecure, or that we never experience moments of intense self-doubt. We lock these very human, messy feelings deep inside a basement within our hearts, and we stand at the door, terrified that someone might catch a glimpse of what lies behind it. When someone gives you a look that feels critical, or when they make a comment that hits a little too close to home, the panic you feel isn't just about their words. It is the terrifying fear that they have discovered your secret, that they have seen the very parts of you that you have judged as unworthy of love. But this internal basement is a heavy burden to guard. When you spend your entire life running from your own flaws, you give external judgment absolute power over your emotional well-being. Anyone who happens to poke at that specific sore spot can instantly send your whole world spinning into shame and anxiety. True strength doesn't come from pretending those fragile, broken places don't exist. It comes from having the immense courage to turn around, walk down into that quiet basement, and look at those parts of yourself with gentle, unblinking compassion. It means sitting with your loneliness, your mistakes, your jealousy, and your fears, and saying to them, "I see you. You are a part of my story, and you are allowed to be here." When you finally choose to meet your own hidden depths, a profound and beautiful shift takes place inside you. You stop looking at your flaws as dangerous enemies that must be hidden away at all costs, and you start seeing them as wounded parts of your younger self that are simply longing for safety and acceptance. The moment you accept your own awkwardness, your own learning curves, and your own complicated history, the opinions of the outside world lose their sharpest edge. If someone tries to judge you for being imperfect, it no longer shatters your foundation, because you have already lovingly embraced that imperfection yourself. You become entirely anchored in your own reality, beautifully whole, and completely free from the exhausting need to prove your perfection to a world that was never keeping score in the first place. When we are terrified of being judged, our minds are constantly living in a hypothetical future. We are worrying about the next meeting, the next social gathering, or the next conversation, treating every upcoming event like a test we are bound to fail. This constant, forward-looking anxiety robs us of the only space where we actually exist, right now. Take a deep breath and look at where you are standing in this exact moment. The room around you is quiet. The people you are worrying about are not here. You are safe. You are whole, and you are capable of handling whatever comes next, one single step at a time, bringing your awareness back to the physical reality of the present moment, breaks the spell of the imaginary audience, and anchors you back into your own life. Think about how often you are physically in one place, but your mind is miles away, fighting battles that haven't even arrived yet. You might be sitting on a comfortable couch or walking under a beautiful sky, but inside your head, you are pacing the floor of a future confrontation. You are playing out scenarios of rejection, preparing defenses for criticisms that haven't been spoken, and mourning a loss of dignity that hasn't happened. We live our lives in the conditional tense, always wondering what might happen, what they could say, and how we should react. It is an incredibly exhausting way to live because you are constantly spending your precious emotional energy on ghosts. You are trying to solve problems that only exist as shadows in your thoughts. When you allow the fear of judgment to pull you out of the present, you miss the actual texture of your life. You miss the warmth of the sun coming through the window, the soft rhythm of your own breathing, and the quiet comfort of a peaceful afternoon. You trade the solid reality of the present for a chaotic, unpredictable landscape of worry. But notice what happens when you intentionally choose to pull your thoughts back to the here and now. Look at your hands. Listen to the faint, ordinary sounds of the environment around you. Feel the simple weight of your body resting against your chair. In this exact second, there is no panel of judges. There is no criticism. There is only you, breathing in and breathing out, completely okay, just as you are. This grounding isn't about pretending that the future doesn't exist. It is about recognizing that you can only handle life in 24-hour increments. You cannot fix tomorrow's conversations today, and you certainly cannot control how people will react to you next week. All you have is this single step, this single breath, and this single moment of choices. When you anchor yourself firmly in the present, the giant, terrifying mountain of other people's expectations suddenly shrinks. You realize that you don't have to carry the weight of the rest of your life all at once. You just have to be here, true to yourself, right now. Let the future take care of itself. Let the imaginary voices fade away, and gently invite your heart back home to the quiet safety of this present moment. Think about the people in your life who make you feel completely at ease. The ones where you don't have to watch your words, where you can laugh too loudly, or admit that you are having a difficult day without any fear of rejection. Notice how simple and light it feels to breathe around them. That is what real connection feels like. It thrives on vulnerability, not perfection. When we hide our true selves out of fear, we accidentally filter out the very people who would love us for who we actually are. By choosing to step out from behind the mask, you give the right people the chance to find you. You don't need the approval of the entire world. You just need a small, honest space where you can show up exactly as you are. Think about how exhausting it is to build relationships based on a performance. When you only show people your polished side, the side that never makes mistakes, never feels sad, and always says the right thing, you create a wall between your heart and theirs. You might look like you have a lot of companions, but inside, you feel a deep, aching loneliness. Why? Because you know that they are only connected to your performance, not to you. You are constantly terrified that if you drop your guard, if you show them your fatigue, your doubts, or your unedited thoughts, they will turn around and walk away. We keep people at a distance to protect ourselves from judgment. But in doing so, we accidentally lock ourselves out of the very warmth and understanding we are starving for. True connection requires a quiet act of courage. It requires you to show up with your rough edges, your quiet hesitations, and your unique ways of looking at the world, and to trust that you are worthy of being heard. When you finally dare to be honest about your flaws and your feelings, something truly beautiful happens. The right people don't run away. Instead, they lean in closer. They look at your vulnerability, and they feel a deep sense of relief, because it gives them permission to breathe a little easier too. They say things like, "Me too. I thought I was the only one who felt that way." In that shared moment of realness, the exhausting burden of judgment completely melts away. You realize that you don't have to be flawless to be loved. You just have to be real. You do not need to collect thousands of admirers or convince every person you meet to understand your journey. The fear of being judged often makes us focus on the people who are critical, cold, or distant, while we completely ignore the quiet hearts who are already standing right beside us, waiting to love us just as we are. Shift your gaze away from the crowded audience that demands perfection, and look at the small circle of souls who value your peace, your laugh, and your presence. Those are the spaces where you can put down your heavy armor. Those are the connections that sustain us through the storms of life. Allow yourself to be found by the people who love the unedited version of your story, and let that safe, genuine circle be more than enough for you. If you have spent a long time feeling like an outsider, constantly adjusting your volume and your personality just to be accepted, please listen closely. You do not have to earn your place on this planet. You do not have to prove your worth by being flawless or quiet or entirely uncomplicated. Your presence here is already justified simply because you exist. The unique way you view the world, the specific warmth you bring, and even your messy, unfinished pieces are all part of the fabric of life. As you move forward, let the opinions of others drift away like background noise. Take up your space, speak your truth, and trust your own path. You belong here, completely and undeniably, just as you are. Think about how much time you have spent sitting in corners, wishing you could disappear, or wondering what secret blueprint everyone else received that you somehow missed. We watch people navigate the world with what looks like absolute confidence, and we assume there is something fundamentally wrong with us, that we are too sensitive, too broken, or just too different to ever truly fit in. We treat our very existence like a mistake we are constantly trying to correct. But I want you to consider a different perspective. What if you aren't broken at all? What if the unique cadence of your heart, the deep way you feel things, and the specific questions you ask are exactly what this world needs? Belonging does not mean fitting into a mold that someone else built for you. Fitting in is about changing who you are to be accepted by a room, while belonging is about showing up exactly as you are and knowing that you are already home within yourself. You do not need to wait for a specific person, a specific title, or a specific level of achievement to finally grant you permission to exist without shame. You belong to the quiet mornings. You belong to the ground beneath your feet. And you belong to the shared human journey of trying, stumbling, and growing. Every time you hold back your true thoughts, every time you hide your genuine smile, or every time you force yourself into a corner out of fear of what they will say, you are denying the world a piece of reality that only you can provide. Let go of the exhausting idea that you have to be fully healed, perfectly balanced, or completely certain of your path before you can take up space. Life is not a finished masterpiece. It is a continuous, living movement, and you are a vital part of it right now, in this very second, with all your unresolved questions and tender places. The people who truly matter, the ones who are walking the path of authentic self-discovery alongside you, are not looking for a polished monument of perfection. They are looking for a fellow human being who has the courage to be real. So let your shoulders drop, let your breath go deep, and let the heavy weight of other people's judgment slide off your back. Look out at the world and know with absolute certainty that you do not have to beg for a seat at the table. You are already here. You belong here. Where do we go from here after we have chosen to put down the heavy weights we were never meant to carry? When you spend a lifetime believing that your worth is a currency controlled by the opinions of others, reclaiming your life can feel like stepping out into a completely unfamiliar landscape. It is quiet here. The ringing noise of the invisible audience begins to fade, and for the first time, you are left with the sound of your own breathing, the rhythm of your own heart, and the vast, open space of your own mind. It can feel intimidating to stand in that stillness because we are so accustomed to the chaos of constant adjustment. We are so used to the frantic pace of changing our shape, rehearsing our words, and defending ourselves against imaginary blows that peace itself can feel like an unmapped territory. But this stillness is not empty. It is the fertile ground where your actual life is finally allowed to grow. The journey of stepping out from the shadow of external judgment is not a single dramatic leap. It is a quiet, daily practice of returning to yourself. There will be mornings when you walk into a room and feel that familiar, icy spike of anxiety, that sudden urge to tighten your shoulders and pull your presence inward. In those moments, you are not failing. You are simply encountering an old pattern that spent years trying to keep you safe. Healing does not mean you never feel the fear again. It means that when the fear arrives, you no longer let it drive the vehicle. You can look at that anxious impulse with immense tenderness and say, "I see you. I know you are trying to protect me, but I am safe now. I don't need to shrink anymore." You learn to treat your hesitation not as a sign of weakness, but as an invitation to practice a deeper level of self-compassion. Think about the incredible transformation that occurs when you stop viewing the world as an interrogation room and start seeing it as an open canvas. When you are no longer consumed by the desperate need to be perceived as perfect, you are finally free to be curious. You can try a new path simply because it interests you, without needing to know if you will be the best at it or if it will earn the approval of your peers. You can speak an honest truth in a conversation, not to provoke an argument or to demand agreement, but simply because it matches the reality of your inner world. You begin to realize that the most beautiful things you possess, your capacity for deep empathy, your unique creative impulses, your quiet resilience, were never things that could be measured by an external checklist. They are gifts that belong entirely to your own essence, and they do not require a single validation stamp from the outside world to be real. As you walk forward into this new way of being, you will notice that your relationships begin to shift in a profound and beautiful way. When you stop presenting a rehearsed, curated version of your life, you naturally stop demanding perfection from the people around you. You look at their awkwardness, their stumbles, and their unspoken fears with the same gentle grace that you have extended to your own shadow. You no longer need them to play a specific role in your script just to make you feel secure. This is where real community is born, not in the shared adherence to a flawless, superficial standard, but in the honest, messy, and supportive space where independent minds can meet without the need for masks. You begin to attract people who are also tired of the performance, people who are longing for the relief of a genuine connection. And together, you build a circle where it is safe to simply be human. Let this understanding settle deeply into the marrow of your being. You are the author of your own narrative, and you are the only one who has to live within the sacred space of your own skin at the end of the day. The world will always have an opinion, a critique, a standard, or a preference, because the world is made of people who are still trying to navigate their own unhealed spaces. But their map is not your destination. You do not have to spend another minute of your precious, brief time on this earth trying to fix the distorted reflections in their mirrors. Your life is an entirely original piece of art, an unfolding journey of self-discovery that answers only to the truth of your own heart. Take a deep, final breath. Let your posture soften, and feel the immense power of your own quiet presence. The invisible eyes have lost their grip. The masks have been laid down. The script has been torn up. You are finally here. You are entirely whole, and you belong to yourself.